do some critical thinking here, think through about what it could be. Sometimes it's a big, expensive issue, but sometimes it's not. Now we scanned the computer and we had two codes. It was code B2187 and B2189, and they're both lean at idle. In other words, being 87 and 89, both banks are lean. So we have to think of a problem here. What could cause both sides of the engine to be lean? Now, for example, I have two eyes. What's going to affect me not being able to see out of both of my eyes? Total darkness. But if I were just to cover one eye, the other eye could still see. So the fact that I have a bank problem and it's affecting both banks, it's like suddenly I'm losing vision. It's affecting all of my sight, not just one side. The same thing happens in here. The computer gets this air past the mass airflow sensor, and it's going to affect both banks. If we had a code for only one bank problem, we'd probably be leaning more towards either a bad injector not squirting fuel, or possibly a intake runner control problem. There's various things it could even be. So is that leak very bad? Let's use our propane to find out. I'm going to turn my propane on and add it right in front of this crack. Now you can see right away the oxygen sensor saw it, went rich, and the computer's trying to pull fuel away. Now why is it doing that? So the crack is why we have lean codes, but it is not why it is shifting bad. Now we're sitting here at idle. You can hear the engine idling. And when we torqued it, you could see this open. But without torquing it, let's just say, what if I open it? What's it going to do to the engine? Can you see the immediate effect? Now what's going on here? Now we've got a sudden gulp of air that the PCM doesn't know about, so it can't add fuel to support that air. Now why would that crack in that tube be so bad and cause a problem? Well, this has a mass airflow sensor, which is right here. Well, when the pistons come down, they create a negative pressure. Now the atmospheric pressure, which is positive, then rushes in through the air filter past the mass airflow sensor into the pistons to fill that void of the negative pressure. So all the atmospheric air has to pass by this mass airflow sensor, so it can measure it. When it measures it, it sends that report to the computer. The computer then can adjust the fuel injector pulse width to match the amount of air that is coming into the engine. But when we have a hole like this, air is coming to the engine down here, we call it downstream, and the mass airflow doesn't know about it. Since it doesn't know about it, doesn't see it, it can't report it. Therefore, the computer is trying to adjust the air-fuel mixture based off bad information. That's why the engine is shifting. Now why did it do it when we just slowly accelerated? Because the throttle plate is not open very far, and we're just adding, when we torque the engine, we add some air and the engine is bucking and jerking. So that big gulp of air is why it is shifting bad. But when we get up to cruise speeds, now the throttle plate is open more, there's more air going in naturally anyway. So yes, it would set these codes for bank 1 and bank 2 both being lean. Now let's watch some of this again in action. So we're in drive, and we're just going to start and we're going to accelerate real slow. As you can see at this speed, it looks like it's doing okay. Now we're going to accelerate a little harder. Now that I'm moving, I can accelerate and it doesn't buck and jerk. So in this case, it's not a terribly expensive issue. We're putting in a new air duct. Why? Because these are rubber and they're flexible. They should be accordion style. Well, after a while, they can just get dried and cracked, and that's what can happen on these, and that causes that split. So you need to get the correct one for the application for your year, make, and model, and this is the repair. Now, one footnote. On a vehicle like this, you should always check the motor mounts as well, because if the motor mounts are broken, causing that engine to flop up and down, that can put a lot of flexing in this that isn't supposed to be there. So make sure your motor mounts aren't the things that cause this to go bad. But if they're good, replacing this will fix your problem.